Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 10 of the new Crafting for Pleasure. So this week we are going to make these background colorful papers. I was asked to do this and so I finally have everything together. This is going to be a two-part in our series. So we're going to have this week, we are going to make the stamps to make the paper. And then next week, we are going to make the paper and we are also going to make dyed paper. So, because I really was going to start by just making all the stamps and then showing you how to make the paper. But if you don't have the stamps, I figured that it might be best for me to show you this week how to make the stamps, and then next week we can use them versus me making them off screen and then just using them. So we need to have some kind. Now these are circle papers. You don't have to do them in circles. You can do squares or whatever. I kind of like to do the same type of thing. Like I might even do labels, or like all labels as the background with the little stamps on top. But you can decide however you want to do it. So we're going to do it basically just like this. Now this one has some handmade stamps and it has some store-bought stamps. I'm going to show you how to do handmade stamps in case you don't have any. So by the time we're done with this week, you'll be ready to do next week. So what we're going to need, we're going to need cardboard, we're going to need fun foam, scissors, glue, masking tape. You can use little tiny shaped stickers. You can use hole punches. You also can just cut circles by yourself. You don't need to have the hole punches. I also have here this is tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree, and I've glued two together to make a stamp something to hold my stamp. And that's pretty much what we're going to need. Also, like what do you call this? Chess pieces work great for stamps. So there's a lot of different little tips is why I separated out the stamps, because things like these chess pieces. These I got at the Goodwill warehouse, and the people throw the games around, all the pieces fall out. So I have tons of game pieces in glass jars because I love games, and so the game pieces to me are a pleasure to look at. But the wooden chess pieces are normally solid, so they make a really nice base for a stamp. So you can put your whatever you've cut out on the bottom and use that to stamp with. So they make a really nice base, but the plastic ones, even if they have a solid, like let's say a little felt on the bottom or something, the plastic ones, and usually the glass ones also, this base part is hollow. It's hollow inside. So when you put your stamp on there, even if it does have like a felt or something on the bottom to make it look solid, when you put your stamp on there and you go to press, well, that's going to press up into that indentation where it's hollow. So you want to make sure that whatever you're going to put your stamps on needs to be something that's solid. So that's one of the tips, and you can use any different types of the chess pieces. It makes it for something fun also to have around your art room. So, and that's what we're going to use this too for. We can use it for a base here, or we can use it as, we can put our foam here. So let's just get started with what we have. And so the first things first, if your foam is really, really thin, this is two pieces glued together because it's kind of thin. So that makes it a little bit thicker. It makes it stick off of whatever it's glued to a little bit further to where it's going to touch your paper. If it's really, really thin, cut out two of the same thing, or glue. What I do is I glue a few pieces together, and so that it makes it a little thicker, and that way it gives you a raised area to use for your stamp versus being, if it's really flat, when you put it on the paint that you're going to stamp with or the ink that you're going to stamp with, if it's super flat like these, these are just little, these are flowers and little flower centers, and these are under the water little stickers. So, but they're very, very thin. I've got one right here. So they're so thin. So if you put those on the cardboard and then you tried to, so you've got them on here, and then you take it and you dab it in your paint, and then you go to stamp it on your paper, it's so close. The paint's going to be all over here and all over your stamp, and it really is going to not do that great of a job. So you need a little bit of lift. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but you definitely need some lift. And then this is one that I had punched out. This is just a cardboard I punched out a bunch of circles from, because you also want your cardboard to be really sturdy. So this is really quite thin. So I punched out 2 of the same size circle, and then I just glued them together. I also just will take 2 pieces of cardboard and glue that together. Between the 2 pieces of cardboard and the glue in the middle, let it dry really well before you start cutting it or anything. But that makes it really nice and solid, because you just need a solid base for your stamps. That's, you know, one of the basics, like one of the most important things is to have a solid base. But after I'd punched these all out, I thought this right here will make a nice stencil. So you can put it on your paper and take a dauber of some sort and stamp and just press your colors through that, whether it be paint or ink, and that'll make a nice stencil. If I had thought about it before I was starting, I would have left a little bit of an edge. I would have taken my circle punch and I would have pushed it in further so it wasn't so close to the edge, so that when I'm trying to dauber on this one or rub the paint with the brush, I'm not going to go outside the edge and get that sharp edge of the cardboard. So if you leave a little bit of an edge, and then if there's, you know, if you still think it's a little close or you have a problem, you can always tape them down. And when you tape them down that way, when you take the tape off, you're not going to have anything that has bled over the edges. And you can even do that with that really super thin piece. Just tape over the edge like that, so that when you're putting your paint on there, it's not getting on your paper, and then you take that off and you're good to go. Now, I did peel that off. To make your tape less tacky, you can just take it and just like stick it on your skin a few times, or you could be allergic, so you know you don't want to do that. So take it and just stick it on your t-shirt a little bit, and that will take some of that tackiness off, so that when you put it on here, and especially on your paper that's underneath that you're putting your paint on, when you take it off, you are not peeling off part of your paper or your stencil. So that is another little thing there that is good to know whenever you want to. You can buy low tack masking tape, but that's expensive. Why not buy regular tape and just stick it on your t-shirt a couple times? It doesn't hurt a thing. So we need glue, stamps. You might need an X-Acto knife, and if you are going to use an X-Acto knife, a little cutting board, like from the Dollar Tree. They have these. So that's what we're going to need. So to start with, you need a base. So we can use our wooden base. I'm going to move this because we can save that and use it for a stencil, and I will do that. And so we need bases. So we've got that and that. We need our fun foam. Now the thing is that I was going to show you how to make a stamp like this. Now this is a circle of foam that I got from the recycle store. I used to do recycle store kits. And they make great stamps. So that's what that was. But since you don't have one of those, I'm going to show you how to make your own. So you'll just take, and this actually is a little thick, I think, for my punch to go through. So I do need to grab really quickly a piece of cardboard. I'll be right back. It's right over here, not too far away. And well, okay, so I grabbed a piece of cardboard so I can show you how to do it, but this is chipboard. Chipboard is a flat cardboard, like cereal boxes are chipboard. All of your boxes like that are chipboard. I grabbed, this is corrugated cardboard. It's very, very thin, but it does have the corrugations in it. Corrugated cardboard does not work the best as a base for your stamps because it's not solid. And again, remember, solid base is your most important part of making your own stamps. But to show you how to do this, we are going to just use this because as I grabbed through, all I kept grabbing was little bits of corrugated cardboard. So we are going to, we're going to cut our base. Okay, so we've got a circle, and we want to cut a circle out of the middle of this base. So the thing is that how do I get this exactly in the middle? How do I find the middle? So what I'm going to do is just grab a piece of paper in order to find the middle. It will make it easier for me to line up my little punch and make sure it's basically in the middle. So now that I've got a piece of paper that's the same size as my outside circle, I want to find the center so I can get my inside circle. And of course, also, if you have a little compass, you know, that goes around, you put a pencil in it, those work really good to draw this out too. You don't even have to do this part. So, but I want to know where the center is, and I don't just want a little tiny hole in the center. So what I'm going to do is just shave off, like maybe 1/4 of an inch, not very much, but I'm just going to shave just a little bit. I'm going to come in and then go out at an angle, just a little bit. So it's going to give me a little cross in the center. And I'm going to come over and do it over here too. Just shave off a little bit. That one might have even been a little much, but just because I want to be able to really see where that center is. And so there we go. Also, I love that design too. Isn't that kind of cool? I like that. So, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue, and I'm not going to use wet glue. I'm just going to use stick glue because it holds faster. Am I doing this right? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, that is how I did it, because I wanted that to be dry when I punched it. Okay, so now that we know where our center is, we're going to be able to put this in here and then really kind of line it up. And this is a little bit, this cardboard is a little bit thick. So normally it would not be, I wouldn't do a piece this thick. The chipboard's not as thick unless you glue it together. And this I know is too hard, I think, for my punches. So now what I'm going to do is, I know where the center of that circle is. And does it have to be absolutely perfect for me? No. But I do want it to be close. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it and just look and kind of try and make sure that it's about in the center. And then cut that out. So now I have got the shape that I'm going to want to use to make this stamp right here. And I can also use this as a shape for the stamp, also for a stamp. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to glue it onto my fun foam. I'm going to set a book on top of it, and I'm going to let it dry overnight, because you really, if you're going to be messing with it, you really want things to be dry. If you make a stamp that you really, really like, make sure that you let it dry, because there's nothing worse than making something you really like and then getting a little bit impatient in not letting it dry and then ruining it and then not being able to recreate it. The one thing about homemade stamps is they are awesome because they're homemade, so there's nothing that's exactly like them. And but the other thing is that it's really hard to, I'm going to set this aside because I'm not going to glue this on right now. It's hard to recreate them, so you have to keep good track of them. I have lost some of my favorite stamps before, and it's like, oh no. Okay, so now that we put our cardboard on our 2 thicknesses of fun foam and it has dried really well, I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to cut out the center, because this will not fit into my punch. There are a few punches out there that are like heavy duty punches or whatever that will fit thick stuff. These won't even fit my actual just thinner fun foam to punch it. I have to glue the cardboard to my fun foam, let it dry, and then still I have to cut it out. If you can see, like, I cut this one out and it's not perfectly along the edges, and you know what, that's okay with me. It doesn't need to be perfect, because again, this is my stamp. And I do have to say that sometimes some of the mistakes that I have made when I'm cutting something out are like some of my most favorite stamps. So if you think, if I'm not going to like this, you know, first off, stamp backwards. So as you're doing something, remember, it's not going to look the way that you're looking at it. It's going to look exactly the opposite. So, but there are so many times that you think, oh, I'm not going to like this. And you'll find that a lot of those times you really will like it. Okay, so now we do have some jagged edges here. And I'm going to see if I can kind of use an emery board to get that off a little bit. Or just try and break it up this way. I'm just going to try and smooth it out a little bit. It is going to be what it is going to be. So, like I said, I didn't make the other one, but, and if you do have any of the old kits I used to put together, you know, they make really good stamps. Of course, that's what I put them together for. So if you already have a kit, you probably already use them for that. But so you can just go through and just, you know, figure out what would be an easy way to just kind of smooth that out a little bit. You could even possibly put just a little bit of glue on the inside. You don't want to glue out here because some things won't stick to that glue when you're trying to stamp. But you could possibly try putting a little bit on the inside edges if you really think you need to. I'm going to say that for me, this is okay, just like it is. And we'll see when it stamps, which will be next week that we're going to stamp all of these. We'll see what they look like. Okay, so now I've got a little bit here that I can use to make some other kind of a stamp and then glue it to a piece of cardboard. So now we have that stamp and the other cardboard that we cut out of the center, the one we punched out of the center. Glue that to your fun foam, and when it dries, cut it out. So, you know, now we have stamps that we can use. And then here is one that's a little bit smaller than that. It's nice to have different sizes, so I punched out the different sizes that I had. This one is the same size as that one. And then we've got a smaller one than that. And I think that that is all of the circles. Here's one more. Yeah, so lots of different circles. And like I said, you can just draw a circle on your cardboard and cut it out, because even when I cut out this at the end, they're not perfect. Even though I punched out the circle for the cardboard, the fun foam itself, which is the part that's going to stamp, it's not perfect, and that's okay. So now I want to show you when you have a piece of, when you've got your stamp, this is one of my round stamps, because these are all just different round stamps in different sizes, and then the one that's got the hole in the middle. So I've got this one, and I want to stamp it. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it in my ink or my paint. We're going to use paint next week. And then I'm going to stamp it on my paper. Now what happens? Number one, I've got ink on my fingers from when I was, or paint when I was trying to put it on there. Now I'm stamping it here, and now I'm putting that paint onto the paper. So you need a handle for your stamp. And to do that, you're just going to use masking tape. So you just take a bit of masking tape and you're going to fold the center up and hold on to a little bit on each side. We're going to have a little wing stick out each side. So we're going to go together just like that with our little wing sticking out. Push that center together. Don't let these go together or they'll just stick, and if they do, get another piece. So then we're going to take these wings, we're going to put them on our stamp, press them down really good, and now we have a handle. So I make all of my foam stamps like this if they're on cardboard. And then you can push them down, you can pat them around, you can tap them on your ink, tap them on your paper or your paint, and get them nice and coated, and then stamp them down. And then you can press the whole thing. You don't need to press any kind of stamps, whether they're store-bought or whatever. You don't need to press them super hard. It's all about getting paint or ink all over the stamp, and then giving that stamp, getting that paint or ink, giving it time to soak into your paper. You'll see people that will press super, super hard. You don't really have to do that. It takes them a while to do all of that really hard pressing, and that's why their stamp comes out fairly decent. You want to put it on there. You do want to give it a little bit of pressure, but you don't need to squash that stamp. Sometimes you squash your stamp so hard that it can distort it a little bit, especially if you're using clear stamps. So make sure you have ink all over the whole thing. And then when you put it on there, do press it down a little bit everywhere. But don't move it. Let it sit there for a second and let that paint or ink soak into your paper. And then when you pick it up, straight up so that you don't smudge it, and it will make a really nice impression. So, and if you have a spot that just isn't working right, you can try cleaning a little bit with alcohol ink. Some people do a lot of different things with their clear plastic ones to get them ready the first time. I've never done that, but there are different things you can see. But or make sure that your table is flat wherever you're stamping on, because that could be a problem. But most of the time the problem is they go like this, and then they go like this and go, oh, it didn't touch right there. Well, look, did you get ink on it there? That could be part of your problem. So, but the other thing is, if you did seem to have ink all over, then the problem was you went like that and you went like that, and you just didn't give that paint time or ink to get off of the stamp and onto your paper. So then we've got little stamps that are made with, these are both made with, and see, this is a couple layers and this one's lifting off just a little bit. So I'll have to put a little glue under there, but it still works really well. Those are made with the little stickies that I was talking about. Little sticky stamps. So here is one with a fish. Now the one thing that you want to do with these, and you can still make even your little tabs because you don't want to have to like try and hold on to those. So always put a handle on them. And this one is 4 layers. And the big thing is you want to make sure that you trim fairly closely to your foam. And the reason being is the further out that your cardboard sticks past your foam, the more chance you have of rocking it into your paint or your ink. So and also sharp corners, just love to like reach right down and grab your ink. And then when you're trying to stamp extra paint that you don't want there onto your project. So you want to do it fairly close, because that's going to have a really hard time bending all the way down past all of these to touch your paper. It may get ink on it or paint on it, but it's not really going to, no matter what, because that is, I'm going to look at it this way maybe. See how far away that cardboard is from if this was your paper? There's no way that little bit is going to get all the way down to there unless you like rock it. So, like, I think I saw one here. Well, maybe not. I was thinking I saw one here that was like that. So you do need to be careful not to rock your stamps, because that's where you get that outside ink onto your paper also. If you get ink on the outside like this, see there? But when I stamp these, that ink does not get on my paper because this holds that away. But if I did rock it really hard, it would still be pretty hard to get it because it's so close. So that is another tip. So again, we want to remember that this is not going to be enough. So I just take these and just separate it. Now this sticky stuff is not necessarily, this is a permanent glue. You can also use tacky glue. But the stickiness on these is not always the best. They're just kids' fun foam. So I go ahead and put a little bit of glue and the sticky on there. And then just line them up as best you can. if they're a little bit off, usually those back layers are not going to touch. So there we go. There's 2. I got out 3 of these because to me that still wasn't quite thick enough. Okay, so the green's got the sticky on it, so I'm going to put that right on top of this purple one. And there. Now look how nice and thick that is. So that's a lot thicker. That's going to be a whole lot better. Now for the gluing them together, I like the stick glue is okay. To glue them to your blocks or whatever you're gluing them to, I use tacky glue because it does hold better. So now on this one, these blocks are not quite wide enough for this whale. Either his little fin is going to stick off the bottom, or if I get his fin on there, then his head is going to stick off the top. And if you don't have a solid base, then when you go to put this on there, that part is whatever's not on your solid base is not going to stamp as well. Now you could stamp it like that, and then you could try pushing down on the head, but then you may push harder, so the ink might get darker, it might be lighter, it might dry a little bit too much before you get that pushed down. So, but these blocks are a little bit wider when you glue 2 of them together. Not much, but a little bit. So now this way, he does fit on there. So I'm going to put him on the blocks that way. And you want to make sure that they are like even and smooth. You know, if they're offset a little bit, is this one? No, they're both good. If they're offset a little bit, if one's a little taller than the other, check the other side. You know, just to make sure that you've got a nice flat surface, that they're both even this way. Or you'll have the same problem. It won't quite ink up as well and stamp as well. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on here, and again, let it sit overnight with the book on top. So we're just going to take this one, and since they have to sit overnight, we won't be stamping them today, but we will be stamping them next week on next week's video to actually make our paper. And actually, I will probably do that video this afternoon. So this video that you're going to see is going to come out on Easter Sunday, or Easter Saturday. But we have the family coming in, so I always do them a week ahead of time. So right now it's the week before Easter weekend. And so I'll be able to do this one and then do the one that will come out the next week after Easter. I'll do that today because I won't be doing it Easter weekend, but it's early morning now, and so I will do this late this afternoon after these have had time to sit and under a heavy book and dry. So I also have, I like if I have little ones, I love them on the ends. I don't know why, but I like to, maybe because there's just so much more room to hold on to, you know, like this way. So I do like to do the little stamps on the ends. You can do one on each end or one on each side. I've seen people do that, and that, you know, you get a double stamp for one. I don't usually. And I think it's because, like, I just want to know that I can set these where they're going to be fairly protected. And so I don't know. But, and so here I had glued these little guys to a piece of cardboard first, because I did a whole bunch of them all at once and then wanted to put them under a book, so it was easy to glue them to a cardboard and get them all ready under the book, and then cut the cardboard out and put that on there. But then I had to put it on there and let that sit. So really, you can put it right straight on there and put that under the book, and that will be faster. And so we have all of these nice little underwater, and, you know, like the dots and a little even flowers they have underwater, and like starfish. So here is a little octopus. Now his little arms are quite off, but he is still held far enough away from the flat surface. And so long as you don't push on him really hard, I don't think that those under layers that are sticking out in different areas are gonna show up. I think that they'll be just fine like that. And again, remember, cut off those corners and cut fairly close. Now he is too big to go onto one of the blocks. So he is just going to be a stamp on cardboard, which works out totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just sometimes like to do my little stamps on some kind of a block only because they're kind of easier to find. Sometimes when you have little tiny stamps, it's like, where did they go? So here's a little flower. And again, this one needs a stamp, a handle on the back. If your handles are too big, that's okay. I'll show you how you fix that so that they don't like stick to other things, but still gives you a nice handle. So we're going to just put that handle up like that, just like normal. We're going to have our two wings, and we're going to put that on our cardboard like that. So now it's way too big, but you want that all off there. So we're going to trim it off. But you can leave the handle, if you want the handle to be this big and you want it to stay square, then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the handle this way while you cut off. I'm going to go this way. The handle's folded over there. We're going to cut this side off. Just cut around your cardboard so that get rid of all that stickiness, because you don't want that to get in you. You don't want that to get ink on it and get on your paper. So now we've got some sticking out over here, so we're going to take this and fold it sideways and cut off this side. Now it's okay that the handle is sticking out, because the handle, whenever you're using it, you're going to have that handle up to use it like this. So there's nothing sticking out there, even though the handle, when it folds down, is sticking out. It's not going to get ink or anything on it because you're going to be holding on to that part when you do this, and that still gives you a nice solid handle. So you don't have to make your handles. On one of these, I made the handle really tiny, this one. And it is quite tiny. Now it's not too tiny, but if it sticks up further, it's just much nicer to grab onto if it sticks up like this far, because that's about how wide your fingers are. So, and then this one's just a little bit skinny. You can still grab a hold of it, but not quite as well. And if it doesn't work really well, take it off and put another one on. It's just a little tiny piece of masking tape. So, and here is one that I had a whole big piece of this that I had glued two pieces together. Pretty sure this might only be one piece. I have lots of different thicknesses. This is only one thickness, but it's a thick one. But I had glued a bunch of the cardboards on here and let them dry. So then you're just going to cut them out like that. And that looks good enough to me. So you can see just a little point here where it looks like a little point there. And if you want, you can go in and try and trim them down a little bit. It is hard to do. It's fun foam as far as once you've got the cardboard on. You could draw a circle on here, draw a circle on your cardboard, and cut them out prior to. It's when you're trying to cut against the cardboard and cut the foam that it kind of wants to, it doesn't quite cut exactly as round as the cardboard behind it. Don't know how to say that, but so you could cut them out separately. And that one needs a little handle on it, so just get our piece of masking tape, fold it up in the middle, keep your wing sticking out on the side, give that a press, put it on there. There we go. Now this one is very It's very big, so I'm going to cut the handle and everything on this one to get started. I've got the handle on this side, but I don't want it to be any wider than the circle, so I cut right up to the circle, and now I'll go around this side till I get to the handle, like that, and then go ahead and get that off of there, fold this over, and oops, I'm going to cut the handle on this side to get to the circle because I don't want it sticking out. I don't want the masking tape sticking out on the end. So there we go. If the masking tape was sticking out here, not just the handle, again, it's going to touch your paper. So, but now all the stickiness is gone, but we still have a really nice little handle there to grab onto. And the other thing that's nice about it is when you put them away, you can just fold that handle down and just put it wherever you're going to keep it. You can keep them in little plastic sleeves, and you know, just slide them in there, and because they do close up, they do fit quite well. Or you can keep them in a little skinny drawer. You can, you know, keep them however you want to. You want to be careful about them getting like nicked or dented, because once they dent, the dent wants to stay there. If you have one that has a dent that's not super deep and hasn't been there for a really long time, you can hit it with a heat gun carefully, and just like get your heat gun warm before you even put it on there, and then just put it on there, and usually wherever that little dent is or whatever will raise back out again. And so, you know, but you want to be careful. Number one, don't burn your hands. Number two, don't let it sit on there too long that it will melt your fun foam. But that is a way sometimes if you have one. But before you do that, if it gets some dents in it, stamp it first and see what it looks like, because you may decide that you like that dent. That dent might wind up being something that you really like. I've done that before. So, and that's the thing, is that, you know, nothing is really a waste. Now this one, I didn't show you how to put the handle on that one, and you do want a handle on it, especially since it doesn't even have much to hold on to. So we're going to put 2 handles on this one, and because it's too really thin this way to put the handle like that, because there's not much room for the masking tape, I will put it on across this way, and then I'm going to cut that off. And actually there's enough there that I can do both sides. I'll cut this off if I can keep those wings from these 2 wings from sticking together. I'll go straight for right this second so I can get a hold of that. Okay, and I'm going to take those 2 wings, I'm going to put them directly across on the other side. Because something that's this thin, you really do kind of want the 2. And I am putting it so that the edges are very close to the inside of the circle, not sticking over if I can help it, so that when I have to cut it, I don't have to cut the inside. It just makes it easier. So I still have to cut that off now, so I'm going to hold the handle out of the way, cut it, put the handle over there. I have to cut it this way, it just cuts better. And then I'll just kind of cut that off at an angle. I kind of wanted to leave a little bit of a bigger piece there just to hold on to. So I could cut it. I can cut it right straight like that. So, and that still works good. So now I'm just going to cut this off right here. Make sure I don't have any sticky bits sticking out. Looks like I've got a little bit of stickiness here. So there, and now that's a good way to do that one, because you can still put a little bit of pressure on both sides. You can do this, and I do usually give it a little massage. Just don't push really hard. But with the two handles, you can also get it up, because that's a lot of times where you make a mistake is when you go to lift your stamp, no matter what kind it is, you let it move a little bit as you're picking it up. You do want to make sure that when you go to pick them up, pick them straight up. Then they're not going to smear. So now there's that one and that one. Does that have a handle? Yes, it does. And before you start, go through and make sure this one doesn't have a handle. Go through and make sure you put a handle on all of them. There's nothing worse than getting one stamped, you know, one that you want to use, and you go to use it and it's like, oh crud. I just, you know, like wasn't thinking. I put the ink on it, stuck it on there, and now I've got ink on my hands and I put ink on my paper. And or you go to use it and you don't have masking tape near you, and now your choices are either you don't get to use it because you can't put a handle on it, or you have to stop what you're doing and go find your masking tape. So there we go. Now that one's got a handle. So there we go. They've all got handles. We have now all of these little tiny decorative stamps to use with our black paint that we will use as the second layer of our project. And then we have all different sorts of circles that we can use as the background, first layer. And so there we go. And then the other thing I wanted to say also is just make sure, keep your little bits and make sure that they're the same size when you go to use them later as a background. You can take a piece of cardboard. This is, remember, nice and solid. It's 2 layers with glue in between, so it's really solid. You put a little bit of glue on there, and then you just take, try and get that off of there. You just take your fun foam, and so let's say we've glued this section here. So we're just going to put that there. And put this little one here. And when I say make sure that you use the same thickness, like if I run out of this, I actually have a pile of it here somewhere, but they may be different thicknesses. So make sure that when you're doing them, like if this had been the one that was glued 2 layers together, it would be a different thickness than this. If they're not the same thickness, when you go to stamp it, it's not going to stamp correctly because parts of it will touch your paper and parts of it won't. So make sure that you use the same thickness fun foam as you're gluing it on your background stamp, so that when you go ahead and you stamp with it, all of it touches. And again, so you're going to paint just a little bit of glue at a time, fill it in, paint a little bit more glue, fill it in until you've got the whole thing full, then set a book on top of it and let it set. But that is another thing, even the smallest of pieces. And sometimes also it's fun to like have a piece that's kind of round like this and keep it round like that and stick it in a corner. And maybe put a little circle there. Put a bunch of little tiny squares there in a circle. So you can use the circle that we cut out of the middle of that one. Like that could go right there. And then something here and something here. So remember that your little pieces are not garbage. They make great background stamps. I make background stamps all the time. I think I got one right here. So this one. Now, when you're making a background stamp like this, you have to be very careful when you cut these really thin ones. You need to know which side of this fun foam is the thickness of your fun foam this way if you're cutting a really thin strip. You don't want to cut a really thin strip, and this should be the part that gets the paint on it, and glue it this way, because then that may not be exactly the same thickness. That's hard to explain, and we'll do these another day, but this is a background stamp that I did. And some of them can take, this one took quite a while, but it was fun. So this is one where I had used a punch to punch a bunch of stuff out of, and then I just glued it. I had a double-sided sticky, again with the recycle stuff, that I just stuck it to that, and then stuck the other side to a piece of cardboard. And this one is a really fun stamp too. So, but just remember, this was garbage. You know, like I was using all those circles and all of those squares. Probably part of it was for here, because there's some of those little squares, and there's a circle. There's another circle, so it could have been for something like this. But yeah, so make sure that you look at them and think, do I want to try that? Because this one is actually quite fun also. So remember, garbage is never garbage. You can always use it for something, kind of like people do with all the little scrap fabrics. You know, even the smallest of small can be used a lot of times for something. So there we go. These are all of our really fun stamps that we're going to be able to use with our black paint next week. Aren't those cute? And then what else we're going to need? Paper. Obviously, we need paper. So we're going to need some paint, or just plain old acrylic paint. If you don't want to do paint, you can do inks also. I'm doing paint because this is something that's very easy for anyone to pick up, and they may already have it, versus stamp pads can be a lot more expensive. And then we're going to make our own paint pads. So we're going to need a paint pad, and this is a drying dish mat. And what this is it's like a towel, and it's got like just a little bit of foam inside. And so this makes a really good ink pad, or paint pad is what I call them. And so if it has a flat, this is a flat towel. And, you know, I mean, it's terry, but I have one that's got like little squares on it. And if that's all you can find, they still work. But the flat ones don't put any kind of texture when you're stamping. You take this really big circle, and there's a pattern on your terry cloth. When you put that paint on here, you just have to kind of keep moving it a little bit like this. If you were to press it down in the same spot and pick it up, that pattern would be on here. But you know what? It looks pretty cool too. So, you know, so don't worry about that. If that's what you can find, go ahead and get it. But if you can find a flat one with a flat terry cloth, go ahead and get that. So we need one of these and some paint, and we need one of these, you know, this is one of those dish washing containers. I can't think of it, but anyways, we'll need one of those and a little bit of water. So there we go. That is, I'm glad I decided to split it, because it's been quite a bit now, quite a bit of time. So, but these are going to be used to make all of our little top stamps for this piece of paper next week. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you get a chance, watch a commercial once in a great while, but not those really long ones. Thanks again, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.